For the Atlantic hurricane season, NOAA is predicting a below normal season for 2026, with roughly a 55% chance of being below normal, a 35% chance of near normal, and a 10% chance of above normal. This equates to 8 to 14 named storms with winds at or above 39 miles an hour. Of these, 3 to 6 hurricanes with winds at or above 74 miles an hour, and 1 to 3 major hurricanes, that's your category 3 to 5, with winds at or above 111 miles an hour. In the central and eastern Pacific, we're expecting a 70% chance of above normal activity. The eastern Pacific, we're expecting 15 to 22 named storms, 9 to 14 hurricanes, 5 to 9 major hurricanes. And in the central Pacific, we're expecting 5 to 13 tropical cyclones. These percentages are based on multiple factors that represent a probabilistic distribution, which includes a lot of information. But even though we're expecting a below average season in the Atlantic, it's very important to understand that it only takes one. We have had category 5s make landfall in the past during below average seasons. What's driving this forecast is largely an El Nino event. There's a 98% chance of El Nino conditions occurring later this season, and an 80% chance that this El Nino will be moderate to strong. In the Atlantic, the El Nino increases the vertical wind shear, which disrupts the outflow at higher levels. It makes it harder for development of the eastern waves coming off of Africa to strengthen into storms. However, in the central and eastern Pacific, the El Nino reduces the vertical wind shear, essentially the opposite of the Atlantic, which is why we're expecting above average season in addition to the warmer sea surface temperatures there.
To recap that forecast here for South Carolina, where the Atlantic season includes us, that is 8 to 14 named storms. This could be tropical storms or hurricanes, either one. It gets a name when it becomes a tropical storm. So 8 to 14 named storms, specifically 3 to 6 of those becoming hurricanes, and 1 to 3 of those could be major hurricanes, which is category 3 to 5. Now, not all of these are going to make landfall, and they shouldn't make landfall in South Carolina, every single one, but we are in that Atlantic basin, so we have to be on the lookout with this. But even with these numbers, we're expecting, or NOAA's expecting, a below average hurricane season, and they don't want people to get their guard down by hearing the words below average. Exactly. Because it can still, it only takes one storm, which is, they told us it only takes one storm to make for a very bad season. And you just heard there that a category 5 hurricane, they have made landfall during below average season. So they explain that it's important to review your hurricane preparedness plan now, even though we are expecting that below average season. You can see the chart there on your screen of a breakdown of the probability. So a 10% chance of above normal season, pretty low chance. The highest chance would be a 55% of a below normal season, which is what is expected here in the Atlantic basin for the Atlantic hurricane season, and a 35% chance of a near normal season. So it looks like here our chances are getting that below normal season, but again, can't say it enough. Do not let your guard down when you hear the below normal. Still could be very impactful for you and your family.
Storms are still going to happen.
Right. And the reason that we could see it a below average season, not to, shed light on it, but the El Nino is expected to develop and intensify. And Lana is going to give you some more information on exactly what that could mean.
Yeah, so an El Nino event, it's a name that not a lot of people know about, but it really affects our vertical wind shear. And the more vertical wind shear we have, it changes the direction of the winds the higher up you go. The less likely a storm is to form. It kind of goes against it. And that might be for us. El Nino helps us here in the Atlantic, but in the Pacific, it helps them with storm formation. So the fact that we're going to be in an El Nino event, and they said around 98% of an El Nino occurring later in the year, around August, and an 80% chance that it's going to be strong, which is good news for us, but still, it means storms could still form. It just makes it to where it is below normal for the season. So that's a good thing that we have that. I believe last year we were seeing more of a La Nina event than El Nino, and we were expected to be above average, although we kind of neared right where we needed to be for the season. So, I mean, given that our hurricane season says below, the moment someone hears that, I am very sure that they're thinking, okay, well, we're not going to be seeing much. It doesn't matter if that storm makes landfall or not.
That's probably the number one thing we can, hit home with is don't get thrown off by the below average, because it only takes one storm to make for a bad season. And the National Hurricane Center also, they're implementing some new technologies and some enhanced communications. One of those things being a new forecast cone, which we will likely see at some point this season. So whether it includes South Carolina or not, there will likely be one for somewhere along the coast. So that new cone is going to include new inland wind warnings to include more areas that could potentially see that wind. It's going to display both tropical storm and hurricane watches and warnings for inland areas, not just the coastal areas. It's also going to include the same shading across the entire 5-day outlook. And it's going to have a new sort of ellipse-based cone that's going to cover 90% of forecast possibilities. So definitely going to be some improvements there. I think this is still an experimental cone, and this is sort of the season they're going to try this out. But I do think these are some great advancements and new things to include on the cone, especially the inland watches and warnings.
Yes, because I know everyone in North Carolina and South Carolina remembers Helene. Places that don't normally see hurricanes or tropical storms, they didn't get as much of a warning as they should have.
Right, and these new inland watches and warnings could make all the difference.
Yes, they could. And that not only allows you to be more prepared, but it gives you an idea of just how far a hurricane or tropical storm can reach inland. So with us being, border states of the ocean, it's easier for us to get one. So hopefully with these new colors and it's easier to look at. Pretty much. It's easier to determine.
Hopefully not going to be quite as confusing. I know it can get a little confusing if you're not familiar, especially with looking at that cone, but I think this will make things a little bit easier to understand.
And they also are implementing new, because the hurricane hunters, they go in there in one of their big planes there. However, they're actually going to be implementing these new unmanned drones to go into the storms, which as of right now, from them using them last year, they experimented with them and didn't really use the data last year yet because it was still in the experimentation there. But 10% more increased for that forecast using unmanned drones. So we will be able to get a better look at what's happening from the inside.
Definitely excited to see that new technology being put to use. And I'm curious if it's going to, and hopefully it does, help improve hurricane forecasting as a whole so we can inform you guys sooner when a storm may be approaching.